Storyhive and On Location. I'm Kelsey Bell, and this is Jason Hewlett.
Hello.
He's a ghost hunter. Todd Sullivan's running late.
Todd was supposed to be here, wasn't he?
I thought so.
He was supposed to arrive first, but he hasn't even got here. Oh my gosh!
That's a terrifying costume. Dirty sheets.
Dirty sheets. Questionable ghost, though. Questionable ghost.
Yeah, not a great ghost.
Stained sheets are always
Stained sheets.
scary.
Soiled sheets.
Was Todd a ghost? No.
No, I wasn't. Hello, I'm Todd Sullivan.
Yes.
Welcome to On Location in Kamloops.
And
we are with Jason Hewlett, which we've already covered.
Yep.
Happy Halloween Eve. Hence
yes.
the horns.
Is that what it is? What is the date?
It's the Eve.
It's the Eve.
Yeah, because there's like
It's
Christmas
Tuesday.
Eve. Yeah, is like the night before. So like tomorrow, Monday night is like Halloween Eve.
Yeah.
Yes,
So this is Eve.
Yes.
2 eves before Halloween.
that's exactly what I said.
That was good.
That is exactly what you said.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So what the heck do you do?
I allegedly hunt ghosts.
Allegedly.
Because
Are we spreading rumors now?
no, it's one of those things. Like I am classified as a paranormal investigator and researcher, and the co-founder of the Canadian Paranormal Society, and we're a government-registered not-for-profit society that investigates claims of paranormal activity, and not just ghosts and hauntings. We do UFOs and Bigfoot sightings and things like that too, but primarily we do the ghosts and hauntings that most ghost hunters are associated with. And we go into like people's homes or businesses or historical sites where they report activity, and we attempt to assess if maybe there's something going on there. And we never claim to find like Casper the Friendly Ghost, because nobody actually really knows what any of this stuff is, which is why I always like to use the phrase allegedly,
Okay.
Right.
right? We go and like Todd, you actually came with us on a couple of
I did, yeah.
investigations earlier this year, where stuff happened that was unusual. But could we say that there was actually a ghost there? No, because we don't know what was behind that activity.
But you tried to debunk it, whatever
Yeah,
it is.
yeah. Like there's like sort of a few different ways that paranormal investigators go about this. There's kind of like the Warren camp, like Ed and Lorraine Warren, of course, who are more like spiritualists and approach everything from a very religious standpoint, where it's like there's demons and evil and stuff like that. We take a more scientific approach, or as scientific an approach as you can get to what we do, with like a little bit of spirituality thrown in, because I think as soon as you're dealing with like the whole concept of life after death, you can't just outright ignore that component of it.
I think so. You have to be a little open-minded.
You do, yeah. So we're open-mindedly skeptical
Right.
as we go in to do our investigation.
Yeah, I don't know how you can, on the one hand not claim necessarily, but be investigating potential life after death without some faith in something lasting beyond the body, right?
Exactly. And as most people in this field will tell you, we have like our own individual origin story, which always starts with something that happens to you as a kid that you can't explain, that creeps you out, and it makes you want to know more about what's going on. And everyone I've ever met in this field has had that. And so that automatically tunes you in to the possibility of something that's beyond our kind of, what I'd actually say is materialistic existence.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So since what age were you when you had your first experience?
Let's say 5 or 6.
Okay, so
Quite young.
Basically your whole life you've
Yeah.
been a believer.
In a believer in the possibility of it. And I've had enough weird stuff happen that I can say with confidence that I know there is more going on to this life than the average day to day. But I still can't put my finger on exactly what that is. And from all sort of the reading and research that I've done, I'm thinking that this, what is considered the paranormal, is quite normal. And it's been a part of this planet and us as a species since the beginning. And I think back when we were kind of like less civilized and more just relying on living off the land and like as individuals or small tribes, we were more in tune with it and relied on it more. And then as we kind of became more, as soon as we started like living in cities and combustible engines and computers and all this stuff, we sort of started ignoring it.
Right.
And until something happens, an individual person can't ignore it anymore. And that's kind of like the person with the home where like we were talking about beforehand, where like doors are opening on their own or things are moving around or you're seeing shadows moving about when there shouldn't be. There's no other way to explain it.
Can you tell the difference between like a good spirit versus like a very nasty spirit?
Only typically through the interactions that you have with them.
Right.
And it's one of those things, like, because people are like, well, do you believe in demons and stuff like that? And it's like, well, I've never seen some horn thing with a tail running around, right? Like, and I'm not a really religious person, but I mean, I've encountered what I would call negative things. And the way that you can tell that is just in the way that they're communicating with you through the devices, or just there's a real heavy feeling to this space where you just feel like the mood changes.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, even with people who are alive, there's good people and there's bad people.
And so when you die, if you were a jerk, you're going to probably be a jerk after death,
you're
right?
You're going to be a jerk ghost. Yeah.
That's kind of how it works, like, at least from our perspective and the experiences that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your sort of historical, like your 6-year-old experience that sort of got you started down this road?
Yeah, so I was in my mom's car, and we went to pick up a friend of mine who was going to sleep over. And for whatever reason, I stayed in the car as my mom went up to the house to gather my friend. And I'm sitting in the back, and it was like a Gremlin. Do you remember those cars, the Gremlins? They're almost like the Pintos. So it's like this weird ugly car. Hatchback. And so I'm hanging out back there, and I'm kind of looking around. I look out the back hatchback window, and I can see the street, and suddenly this face appears in the window. And it's like a horrible face. Like, it's like mongoloidish, like a Jason Voorhees unmasked kind of face. And it wasn't there, and then it was there, and then it was gone.
Do you remember it as clear as day?
Oh yeah, I can still see it right in front of me, and it popped in, and I remember my reaction, and I don't know if I screamed, but I dropped to the floor of the car, and I just did not want to look because I did not want to see that face again. And then I heard footsteps coming up, and it was my friend.
Right.
And so I'm like, okay, I'm like, hey Johnny, I asked him, did you see anything around here? He's like, no. And I'm like, were you hanging around the car? I'm like, no. And there's no one around. And my mom comes up. And I asked her if she saw anyone. She's like, no. And she's like, why? And I explained it. And she was a teacher and just dismissed stuff like that outright. But I remember that clearly. Like, there's nothing, there's something, and then it's gone. And that just opened up, like, the floodgates of what was that.
Yeah.
Right? And I would watch, like, in Search of with Leonard Nimoy, the original one, like Arthur C. Clarke's Mysterious World. If there was books that I could find on ghosts and hauntings, I would read those. As I got older, I'd start watching movies and documentaries about it, and I just never lost that fascination for what that was.
Did you ever see anything that vividly since?
Yeah, actually, inside this house. We renovated this house in 2013. This room actually wasn't so much here. There was I don't know, people can't really see that, but just behind where Todd is, there's kind of an opening to the main rec room. And I used to have kind of a couch there, and the TV would be sort of over here. And I was sitting on the floor here listening to music one night. And I was waiting for a friend to come and pick me up because we had a radio show up at the X on Friday nights. And I remember I was sitting on the floor listening to music, and I got the feeling that there's something behind me. And I turned around, and there was this tall, thin shadow. That's it. It was tall and thin and just black. But
you couldn't make out if it was a woman or man.
No features, nothing. And it stood out against, like, the darkness of the rest of the room. Like, there was, like, a few lights on, but no main light. And it was there, and it turned around, and it ran, like, fast. And I got up, and I kind of chased it out the room, and I went upstairs, because I was like, my wife's upstairs. It was just her and I in the place. I was like, are you just downstairs? And she's like, no. He's like, why? And I just was like, never mind. I just went back downstairs. I didn't want to, like, bring up that I saw this thing that I really couldn't explain. But that's, like, other than that face, that was, like, the most actual physical, closest to physical that I could describe.
Did you ever have, like, nightmares after that when you were little?
No, I always never had nightmares so much, but I was, I guess I could best explain, I was like an anxious kid, especially at night and in the dark.
Yeah.
Like, I would have to always check under my bed, and I'd have to check in the closet and stuff like that. And that would persist actually into my teens, which I'm a bit ashamed to admit. Like,
No.
when your fear of the dark kind of naturally just stops, as like, maybe around 8 or 9. Mine persisted well into my teens. Just a feeling of something being
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. There was a reason why you were scared. It was like your intuition.
My intuition,
Screaming.
I guess, would be the closest. Yeah, my intuition was screaming, there's
Yeah.
something there. And because I'm a believer that whatever this is, it's around us all the time. And it's something like, not like any house can have a spirit in it, or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
Some places, obviously, there's attachment to certain locations, like
Right.
in the traditional ghost story sense. But there's this stuff, whatever it is, can move it around. It can go from place to place.
People usually assume that it has to be like a really old house to have a bunch of ghosts, but
Brand new houses can have it, right? And it doesn't have to just be the place where something bad happened. Like, especially if you get into like indigenous people's beliefs, like there's spirits like in the forest. There's like animals are spirits. Spirits can become a part of the land, that kind of stuff. So we've done some investigations where like it's in a brand new subdivision. There's no logical reason these brand new homes should have anything going on, but they're experiencing some kind of activity. So I would then relate it to either something's just moving through, or it's something that was there before. Because you got to think
either like maybe a previous home, or
Previous
the
home.
land itself, or
land itself, or like like if you think back to when
the littlest hobo of ghosts just
Little
moving from
ghosts,
town to
yeah.
town.
Which we call them travelers, or just the simple fact that like the indigenous people that lived into Kamloops would have lived in this area because it's close to the river, so things could have happened with them. They would die, maybe bury their dead, and those spirits could linger too, right? There's lots of possible explanations for why a home could be haunted or a building.
So how did you get started in the field of ghost hunting? It seems like not something you would just encounter at like a career day.
No, it wasn't a career day. My first real investigation was 20 years ago, February 2003. And I was in journalism school up at TRU, which was then UCC. And I was in a magazine writing class. And and Todd, because you were in journalist just like me, I had a whole semester to write one magazine article.
Ooh.
Like the luxury, right? I have it all that time. Instead of when I was at the Daily News, I was writing like 8 stories
Exactly.
a day.
I need this in half an hour.
Yeah, okay. So I was like, well, I want to write an article for the Fortean Times, which is like one of the big publications of like paranormal and spirituality out of the UK. And so I knew the caretaker of Tronquil Sanitarium.
Oh.
And of course, anyone from Kamloops knows there's a long history of Tronquil, of it allegedly being haunted and having all sorts of creepy stuff go on out there and horrible stuff. And so I talked to him, and I'm like, well, would I be able to come and spend a night out here and bring a group of people, and we want to see if we can prove if this is haunted or not? And he was like, sure. And so there's myself, there's another person from the class who was a skeptic. We knew someone who was alleged to be a psychic. I found someone who had had a scary experience out there. And then a friend of mine who since passed away worked for Shaw Cable. So he had like camera equipment and audio equipment and all that stuff. And we spent the whole night out at Tronquil investigating the different buildings and going down into the tunnel systems, all that kind of stuff. And had...
What did you see?
Nothing. We did have batteries that were freshly charged out, like within about 20 minutes, which is unusual. And if you believe in some of the theories behind ghosts, is that they need energy to do their spooky stuff, so they will draw from batteries and electronics and that kind of thing. So, but the scariest thing we saw, because a lot of people would break into Tronquil back then, so the caretaker had set up these like cardboard cutouts at various places.
Oh.
And my buddy Sean was there, and he had a flashlight, and he put it down this hallway, and he's just like, Jason! And he started to tap me on the arm, like, what? Down there! There's a little girl! And I look at him like, oh my, and swore. And then we're like, wait a minute. She's not moving, and she's holding a dog, and it's a cardboard cutout. But I mean, like, you're primed. Like, you're just waiting for something to happen.
Right.
So you casually move your flashlight across what looks like a little girl in this old abandoned insane asylum.
Yeah.
Woo! Right? Like, so... But that was really it. Like, the closest thing to something paranormal, Donna, who is the psychic, we were in one of the buildings, and the power was dodgy. So the lights would flicker on and off. And the lights went off really quickly at one point, and she kind of screamed, and she was wearing a toque because it was February. So it looked like her toque had been pulled up a bit higher.
Oh.
But because the lights had gone out, I can't attest that someone hadn't done that, or she hadn't done. Not that she was someone that would fake something. You just can't. I didn't see it.
Yeah.
Right? So, but it was a fascinating experience, and it kind of really got me hungry to do more investigation. So I went out to Tronquil 3 or 4 times back then and did my own sort of stuff, investigating out there, and had some stuff happen that I could say seemed definitely spooky. And then I just sort of maintained an interest. But once I started working at the paper, it wasn't something I talked about a lot because this like right now, like how many ghost hunting shows are there on TV in Sasquatch?
There's quite a bit.
Lots, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the Travel Channel isn't about traveling; it's about looking for ghosts. Same with History Channel.
Yeah.
It's about UFOs. But back then, like from 2003 to 2014, it just wasn't really done. Like Ghost Hunters started a bit later than that.
Yes.
Before it became popular. So my credibility as a journalist, I felt if I was openly talking about it and writing about it, would be called into question. And no one else in the newsroom really bought into it. So I kind of kept quiet on it until after that.
People would think you're crazy.
People think I'm crazy.
Just like people who have had experiences with aliens.
Yeah.
You know?
People call them crazy. Like,
Right?
or like
That's a word. Yeah, that's a word. More susceptible to just sensing spirits versus people who just don't believe or don't see or feel.
well, I think
Do you have to be more spiritual to do that?
I think so. I think you have to have some stuff happen. I think as soon as, say, if you encounter some form of grief or trauma, I think that kind of makes you more open to the possibility of it. I think that's why, especially like since the pandemic, this stuff seems to be even more common and more accepted. And so I think when you go, like as a society, we went through something pretty big that was out of our realm of control. And I think then you start to question more. Like, wow, is this all that there is to life? And it could have all just been snuffed out just like that, and society could have crumbled, and that's it. So I think that opens people up to it more. I know a lot of people who are investigators have lost a loved one, like a parent or a spouse or a sibling kind of thing. Like my dad died when I was 19, like back in 91. But I was believing in it before that. But I think that kind of does open you up to it more. And then I think, yeah, just being a little more spiritual, like maybe you're into Buddhism or maybe there are religious people who, Catholics are very much believers in ghosts and things like that. So I think that definitely helps. And I think people who are skeptical, I think that even like hardcore skeptical could have something happen right in front of them and they're just not going to acknowledge that it even happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't think
they're too proud.
I mean, I would, because that coming from someone who I think I consider myself a pretty hardcore skeptic.
Yeah.
I'll share in a minute because I do have sort of a ghost story myself. I don't think for myself, I wouldn't deny that something happened. I just would be reluctant to rush to explain it.
Okay.
Right? So my one sort of haunting experience that I can't explain, way back before I moved to Kamloops, I was living in Williams Lake. I was putting out a monthly sort of arts and lifestyle magazine with my ex called The Stew. And for our inaugural issue, we went up to Barkerville to do some amateur ghost hunting.
Nice.
Tremendous amount of fun. They went overboard for us. They let us wander around with a tour guide, like at midnight, pointing out all the spots that were supposedly haunted. And then they put us up in one of the actual hotels within Barkerville in a room that was supposedly haunted. So that night, I sort of woke up in the middle of the night and sensed, I felt like my ex was sort of sitting at the edge of the bed, and it was just this moment where, like, I wake up and you sort of feel the pressure on that side of the bed, and I just thought, like, either she's sitting up and about to go to the bathroom, or she's just come back from the bathroom and sat down and about to lay back down. Perfectly normal. Then I roll over and I discover that she's just lying there next to me, and there is nobody sitting on the bed, and whatever I felt is now gone. And that was sort of like oh, that's weird. So I mean, I'm not denying that happened, but also I don't know, like I was just suddenly, like I was awake, I was just coming out of sleepiness, I might have been coming out of a dream where I was experiencing something similar, my senses are messed up. I don't know what that was, but I'm not going to jump to ghost.
Yeah.
Is I guess where my position is. But I will absolutely say that it happened. I had that experience. Yeah. And I feel the same way about anyone who tells me that, like, they've seen a ghost or whatever else. I won't doubt that they've had the experience. I might just question the conclusion they come to.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, because we will, naturally as people, we like to attach an explanation to it. So, like you say, so someone who is more of a believer, Todd, would have been like, I'm at Barkerville, which has almost every building there has a ghost story.
Yeah.
People have seen ghosts. We've investigated at Barkerville and had stuff happen. So that happened. It was a ghost. That's what someone who's a believer, a total believer would do, right? And so like you're saying, you're a bit skeptical. So it's like it happened, but I'm not going to say it was a ghost because I don't know. And so as investigators, we try to marry those two concepts together, right? And rule out every other possibility before we say it was a ghost.
So you want a skeptic to be on your team?
We do have a skeptic on our team, and we are skeptical.
Yes.
Of
him?
No, of ourselves, and of the situation.
Yes, we don't trust that damn skeptic.
We don't trust that skeptic. He's up to no good. Like, here's a prime example. Bailey House, which Todd was at, in Merritt, has a long history of hauntings and stuff like that. And we've investigated there many times. And the first time I actually investigated with Peter, who's like the co-founder of the organization that I'm a part of, we had stuff happen. Like, we had voices come through like the spirit box and stuff like that. And we had like a toy come flying off a shelf, which, that's okay. That happened, right? We know that happened. But then, same night, maybe like 10 minutes later, I hear like this Scooby-Doo ghost sound, this woo, stopped. Like, and Peter's in the room and he's like, what? I'm like, did you hear that? And I'm like, what? And he's like, I'm like, there's like a ghost moan. And then, woo, it happens again. And Peter's like, I heard that. Because he had his earphones, he's got his digital recorder there, so he's listening live. He's like, that was like right next to me. Then it happened again. And then it happened again. And then it happened again. And we're starting to kind of look around. Like, this is like a little too common. And we're going around and on the window, there was a hairline crack in the glass. And the wind was blowing. And it was creating the woo.
Little whistle through the
whistle
crack.
through the crack. So,
that's good thing that you do look into it.
That's what you do. Like,
Yeah.
we sort of approach. It's almost like a story. Each incident we treat like a story at the beginning, middle, and end. And so you don't just, oh, that happened and this is what it was. So now you try to look and figure out why.
You always try to find a conclusion before
to
you
it
leave.
and dismiss it. And then if we can't debunk the activity, then we say, okay, that was potentially be paranormal. But then we don't count everything else that happens that night in that location as being paranormal. We break each thing apart individually like that.
It's not like, because this thing was paranormal, everything else must have been.
And every time we come back to the same location, it's always going to be paranormal.
Right. I remember, though, actually, on that, when I was with you, the second time or whatever it was, there was a really interesting sound that got picked up in, like, the basement of...
Yeah, in the basement of the gift shop.
Yeah, it was like a very clear... I don't remember what it said, but it was a very clear word or two.
But it was a word or two. It was almost like we confirmed it. It was like, hello there, or something like that. And that we couldn't rule that out.
Yeah.
And it was crystal clear, like on an audio recording. And I don't even think it was the spirit box. I think it was just...
I think it was the...
Peter had his magic wand.
Yeah, the big microphone that picks up for, like, however far away kind of a thing.
Yeah, the parabolic.
Yeah.
What are these sort of...
Yeah, introduce us to some
things?
of your gear.
Yeah, this is some of the equipment. Now, this is the thing that Todd was playing with at the beginning. And it's a spirit board. It's an electronic spirit board, which actually I built this. I was playing around with it. Because we decided we'd like to try to build as much of our own equipment as possible now, because at least then we know what's in it. Mm-hmm. Like this thing here, I couldn't tell you what's in it. We'll get to that in a bit. But the concept is you treat it like a Ouija board.
So this says yes, no, it's upside down.
Yeah.
Hello, bye.
And bye. So if we're kind of sitting here and we're like, okay, is there any spirit here with us right now? Could you come forward and let us know using the board? And so it's kind of motion activated with a sensor. So, hello. The lights go out, right? Do you think you're dead? No. You know what I mean? That's the whole concept behind it.
Have you had any hits on that?
This is like the second time I've used it.
Okay.
I broke it out last night in an investigation, and nothing happened. With
So the
board.
no flickered.
Just now?
Why did it do that?
Like just now?
You didn't
When
see
I
that?
wasn't
It
touching
just...
No, I didn't see that.
It did. It flickered. You didn't see that?
No. Because you have to get pretty close.
Oh,
right?
that's why it flickered.
Yeah.
Because of it. Yeah. It's okay, though. Your skepticism came in. You realized what it was. It's all good.
Yeah, no, it's good.
You're already a good investigator.
My stupidism. And
So,
then...
that's one of the things that we use, and we're going to try to play around with this a little bit more and see how it works, right?
Cool.
This is a temperature gauge. So When it settles on it, it's got a sensor sort of here. And when it settles on it, sort of what the ambient temperature is, it'll go green and make a beeping sound. And then, which it usually takes its own sweet time doing that. Once it gets to there we go. If there's a change in temperature, like if it gets colder, this will go blue. Or if the temperature rises, it'll go red. And sort of the idea is that ghosts play cold spots. You always hear about it, like, it's cold here.
Yeah.
The whole idea is that the spirit is draining the energy of the room so that it can do something. If it can't pull from an electronic device, it'll just pull it out of the room.
Oh, that's why it's cold, because they're draining energy.
They're draining it, right? Yeah.
Oh.
We're in a basement, so it's just naturally kind of cold down here right now. So
what does that mean?
that is supposed to be saying that the sensor in this spot over here is that it warmed up.
Right. So how much of a temperature difference before it triggers that? You know?
Like
you have
our
to get-
hot breath.
Yeah.
Does it do?
So I just blew on it. So you'd have to be relatively close.
And it's not like around it, it's like in front of it?
In front of it. So you're kind of aiming it at the spot, right?
Right.
I've also heard that ghosts can, like, people smell scents, like apple pie or old lady's perfume.
Yeah, like if the belief with that would be if you smell an old lady's perfume, that some old lady probably went by wearing that perfume with the spirit of. Like, people have picked up, like at O'Keefe Ranch, in the main area, cigar smoke.
Have we considered, though, the possibility that perfume has a spirit?
It could.
Ghost perfume.
Ghost perfume, right? Maybe they do have a spirit. Why not?
I mean, I don't know.
We can.
Do Big Macs have a spirit if you smell like Big Mac sauce?
Todd's going to start his own line of fragrances.
Ghost fragrances?
Yeah,
That's
ghosted.
awesome. But yeah, people will smell cigar smoke, even though no one's been in the building smoking cigars. But suddenly there's like this wafting cigar smoke, right? Mm-hmm. People have reported all sorts of stuff. And then if you do believe in demons and things like that, there's supposed to be like a foul stench associated with it.
I saw a video on YouTube, and I guess a lot of people have like home security cameras just in every room in their house. So this lady was on her couch, and she woke up from a nap, and she said and she calls her husband, and she says, "Oh my God, it smells like sulfur in here."
Sulfur, yeah.
Yeah, that's a common.
That's
But that could also be a gas leak.
Could also be a gas leak.
So
right?
get out of your house. It's either a ghost or a gas
Either way,
leak.
though, it's bad.
You should get out.
Or gas leak. Get out of there.
Get it
Yeah.
taken care
Sulfur.
of really quick.
Yeah.
That's the lesson of the takeaway.
Yeah.
And then shortly after, once she said that, she opened the door, it stunk so bad, and then there was a cross behind her on the couch, and then it just like lifted.
Oh.
Ooh.
It was hanging on a nail, and then it just lifted like that, and then the lights went all funny. Oops.
The fact
Did you hear
that?
That
Would happen at once would be kind of intriguing.
Certainly, yeah.
Yeah. So yes, smells and temperature change.
Smells, temperature change are big ones. We like to use trigger objects, we call them.
Oh.
A really good one is just like a simple marble. So you'd set it up on a table, like in a room and mark it, even like with a piece of tape, and then you kind of go away and do your thing, come back and see if the marble's moved. Or even when doing like EVP sessions, which is like when we try to make communication, if you don't want to talk, could you try moving the marble, that kind of thing. And that's like cheap, like it's marbles.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So that's another one. Excuse me, just getting over a cold. This is the most common piece of equipment we use. It's simply a digital recorder. Mm-hmm. And what we do when we're doing EVP sessions, which that's electronic voice phenomena.
EVP.
EVP is usually every investigator will have his or her recorder out and running. And you sit very quietly in a room and let them run. And you just ask questions, hoping to elicit a response. And this is where you want, like when we go into someone's home, we don't just walk in willy-nilly and just start doing our stuff. Like you interview the people, you find out the history of the activity, you find out if they know anything about previous owners. You try to do research on a location so that when you sit down to ask your questions, you want intelligent responses.
Relevant, yeah.
They're relevant. You want names, dates.
What's your favorite color?
Exactly. Well, yeah, you can ask that too, but you'd have no idea. But then you'd need to know what the person who died's favorite color
What's your
would
dating
be.
profile?
Yeah, right?
That sort of thing. Do you like long walks on the beast?
Yeah, basically.
On the beach.
The beach.
Long walks on the beast.
That kind of worked, though.
That's a song. That'd be a cool song title. So you do that kind of stuff, and even like ask the name of where you are, what city you're in, etc., etc.
When clients call you, that's how it works, right? They
call or email or through social media.
Are they usually like scared? Are they upset? Are they just sad? Like, are they grieving? What's
a little bit of everything? It kind of depends, right? Like some people are freaked right out. Actually, most people are freaked right out.
Yeah, that's the driving force for them to call you.
And they want to know if what they're experiencing is even real, or are they going crazy? That's usually a lot of it.
So you're there to validate them.
Yeah, validate them or prove to them that there is nothing happening. This is
that
actually
they are
something
in fact going crazy.
They are, or no, that it's a natural phenomenon.
Right.
So that's kind of where we really come in. Some people I've done investigations where they're alleging all this stuff happened, and all this crazy stuff, and this is going on, and there's shadows and the basement and smells and weird stuff. And then as you're kind of walking through the house, though, you're looking like they've got every episode of like Ghost Adventures, and they've got books on the occult, and they're dressed all in black, and they've got all this stuff. And it's like,
they just want ghosts.
They want ghosts. And they want us just to come in and say, yep, you've got ghosts. Just so they can be like, yes, we've got ghosts. And quite often those are the places where absolutely like nothing happens. Because these people they want it so bad, they're just taking everything as a sign that there's like a ghost there, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to tell them that. Like, we were here in your house for 6 hours, and you guys left, and we just spent this time here, and we got nothing.
Now, where's my money?
Well, no, we do not charge.
Oh, really?
Not a dime. We do not.
That's a good...
To people out there that have weird stuff going on in your homes, if you're not in Kamloops and don't want to bring us in, no paranormal investigator, no psychic worth their salt is going to charge you to investigate your house.
That's a scam.
That's a scam.
Yeah.
I mean, it's different. Like, you go to psychic fairs or someone who does that for like a living, right? But I mean, if they're like, we're going to come in and rid your home. I'm a demonologist and I'm going to come in and exorcise your spirits for $200. Just don't do it. We're doing this because we want to. We're interested in it. We're trying to bring validity to what this is, and we're trying to come up with conclusions. We do not charge a dime for anything that we do.
That's cool.
And I feel like that does, to some extent, increase the validity of what you're doing, that you're not out there just making a buck. Look,
like we're a government registered not-for-profit society. We do presentations, and we will do like kind of public investigations for people, usually at places like O'Keefe Ranch or at Bailey House. And we will charge money for that, but the majority of that money goes back to O'Keefe Ranch or back to Bailey House. We did something with the SS Sycamoose, Katani House in Vernon. All of the money went back to them. Whatever, and we occasionally do take part of that door, but we just put that back into equipment, travel expenses, that kind of stuff.
What's like the most common place that ghosts are at?
Anywhere.
Homes, business,
anywhere.
Hospitals. I hear
hospitals are like big, because you got to just think of all the trauma that goes on there, right?
Yeah.
But they can be anywhere. There's like, you hear of big fire halls, like the Sagebrush Theater. You're supposed to have Albert. Like, theaters are a long history of paranormal
Old Spaghetti
activity.
Factory.
Old Spaghetti Factory.
Vancouver.
Yeah, it's supposed to have that. Any home could, and maybe it'll go for a while and then stop and never happen again, because maybe something was just moving through. Like, you can go anywhere and allegedly find this activity.
Yeah.
Do you have a personal theory as far as what triggers a spirit to remain? Whether it's, because some people say like it's a trauma, or it's like an unresolved thing, or it's they stayed because of the familiarity, or
they haven't crossed over yet.
They don't know that they're dead. Those sorts of things. Do you have like a personal? Is it all of those things potentially? Or?
I think it's potentially all those things. Like, there's kind of two types of hauntings. There's a residual haunting and an intelligent haunting. Oh. And then you get like poltergeists and that kind of stuff, right? But a residual haunting is the one where something happened and that energy is attached to that location, and it plays like a recording. It's just the same thing. So you hear the classic ghost stories, like at midnight, the woman in white is seen running down the hallway. Right. That's a residual haunting. So something happened and it's just replaying.
Just stuck in a loop.
Stuck in a loop, and you could stand in the middle of that hallway and the woman in white's going to run right through you because she doesn't even know that you're there. An intelligent haunting is the kind you hear a lot about on like, especially like in the movies and stuff like that, or where the doors do open.
Where they answer to you.
Where they answer the question on the board, that kind of stuff. And that's kind of the ones that we typically end up investigating are more, just I think by default. I've been to a place like a residential school down at the Lower Mainland where every night at 12:30, if you're at the rear fire escape, you can hear footsteps. Ding, 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 ding. That kind of thing.
Where's your Ouija board?
I don't have one.
Are you against them?
No. My colleague Peter has like a dozen of them.
Oh my god.
He has a bunch of them. We have used them. A lot of people say that they're evil portals that bring in spirits, but they're really just another method of communication,
right,
more than anything else. There are like the rules of what you're supposed to do. Like you always, at the beginning say, okay, we're wanting to invite a spirit in, blah, 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 blah. And when you're done, you've got to say, okay, we are now closing the board, and you go to goodbye. Like, and if you don't go to goodbye, then you can bring something in. But I think a lot more folklore, Hollywood folklore than anything else. So we do use those. A common method of communication is like the digital recorder, which we talk and it records, and then the spirit box.
This is like the modern version of a Ouija board.
Yeah, this would be like the high-tech version of it.
So how does the spirit box work? Because I don't think we've talked about that yet, have we?
No, we haven't. We haven't talked about that, and then the trigger wire.
Right.
So a spirit box is an AM/FM receiver.
Mm-hmm.
So it's on FM right now. And what it does is it cycles through various radio stations.
Different frequencies?
Yeah. And the belief is that because ghosts, we all have energy. We're all made of energy. When we die, that energy has to go somewhere. So our energy goes into the Earth's electromagnetic field, and they're able to communicate using radio waves. Or manipulating objects, that kind of thing. So what happens is, again, it's the same with the EVP session. We've done our homework. You've got a whole list of questions you want to ask. And you ask a question, and you wait for this annoying static to stop and a voice to come through.
Right.
Now, they're controversial because they do pick up on radio signals, and you do occasionally get radio chatter, which is why you want to ask a question and get an intelligent response back. Kind of thing. And the nice thing is that about it though is that the range is really small. So if there was something here, it would have to be kind of within about a 20-foot radius.
So like,
I think it might be picking up on your farts.
My farts aren't talking though.
No, it's just going.
It's not going. It's going. Blah 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 blah.
I didn't.
I heard that.
All right. Okay.
But you will. I mean, I think you were with us when we used the one at Jolene's place one time. We had some stuff coming through.
Yep.
And Todd, don't tell people that I'm fart. Like, this is live.
Sorry, Kelsey's not actually farting. It was a
I
joke.
don't.
It was a joke from before we started rolling.
I don't even know how.
I apologize. That's incredibly unprofessional of me.
Extremely.
So did you guys want to ask a question?
Sure. Do you have a question?
Let me turn the volume up.
Do you like long walks on the beach or on the beast?
Can you follow me home tonight?
Is there anybody here in this room with us right now? Someone perhaps named Kathleen. Is there a Kathleen with us?
Why did you pick Kathleen?
My grandmother's name was Kathleen. And we have two of her paintings in the house. And when we did we did an investigation here once because stuff happened and we got the name Kathy come through.
Oh.
So, just curious if that would come up.
Hi, Kathleen.
It was almost like a hi. Could you say that again? Did you just say hello? Could you say hello again, and could you say it louder and clearer, please?
I'm sorry that you died.
Do you know that you have passed on? My name's Jason, this is Kelsey, and that's Todd. What is your name? It's like and you get a lot of audio pareidolia sometimes.
Yeah.
Like you think you're hearing something, but you're not sure.
I definitely feel like I hear like a woman's tone, but I don't hear any words, just the sound of a pitch of a woman.
It feels like, syllables, maybe, rather than words.
Yeah, individual just sort of like almost trying to form something. Yeah. Could you say the name of the person you're standing closest to? I almost thought I heard Todd.
I swear I heard Todd.
That was Todd.
Shut up.
I thought it said shut up.
Are you standing by Todd right now? That's so if we did a session, we do that, and then be like, okay, we're going to stop now, so this is your last chance to say something. Is there any message you would like to pass on?
Can you say hello to our audience? You're live.
Even though you're not.
You're not alive, but we are live.
We are live on location.
Anyway, so that's just basically how Spirit Box works.
Nice.
Cool. But are we picking up like AM, FM radio at all, or?
Well, that was on FM. You could switch like to an AM.
Oh, okay.
A lot of time you'll actually pick up whole smatterings. I mean, you had that when you were this Todd, like whole chunks of like what you could tell was radio.
Oh, okay.
I think because we're downstairs,
it's picking up less of that.
Yeah.
I remember as a kid, I'm on the phone, like the landline, and I can hear. Oh no, maybe it was a cordless phone. But I'm like, oh, shh. I'm talking to my friend, but I'm like, shh. Do you hear that? And we could hear like a total
whole other conversation. Yeah.
That was so scary. But
I had a 900 megahertz wireless headset that I could tune in to the neighbor's wireless phone.
Oh, that's awesome.
And listen in on conversations. I mean, I'd have no way of knowing when they were, but every once in a while I'd be like, what am I listening to?
What are they talking about?
Yeah, I'm not going to say who the neighbor was or when it was, but
So what's your favorite toy?
Do
you have a favorite?
Not really. I like obviously the digital recorder thing. The Spirit Box we have had good luck with, but you have to, like I said, you have to be really prepared when you use it.
Right.
We use trigger objects, REM pods, which are kind of basically like this. So this is a trip wire, and it's long. So we'll often hang these in doorways or downstairs or something like that. And the whole concept is, it won't really work here, but it'll light up if you touch it. But I mean, it's all curled around my feet.
It's on your foot right now.
Right? But so
if it's just hanging loose.
Loose on something. And we've had, like last night we were doing an investigation. I'd strung this up downstairs in a place where a door was quite often supposed to open and close on its own. And I had it. And we were upstairs. The animals were outside of the house. There was no one else in there. And it would randomly go off. And that's like just sort of you hear something, so then you go and try to check and see if you can catch anything. We've had it in middle of hallways where we're doing like a Spirit Box session or an EVP session, and ask if you don't want to talk, give us a sign. And there's no one near it. It suddenly just starts lighting up and going off on its own, even though there's nobody there. And so it's dialed in so that you literally have to go up and touch it. So a breeze won't set it off. You have to actually literally be within like a couple centimeters of it to have it go off.
What would be the most compelling piece of evidence or response to one of these things that you've experienced in all of your ghost hunting adventures?
Good one.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We use devices called laser grids. And basically you put them in a dark room and it's exactly what it sounds like. It creates this laser grid beam on a wall. And if something passes in front of the beam, it then creates that shadow.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And we were in the basement at Bailey House. And we had it set up. And it was myself, and then Peter and Marcus, who's our cameraman. And we turned the lights out, and the laser grid's there, and you could see in the room, like, it's full of junk and all this the beam that could cause it. Turn the light off, and it's there. And then slowly, it's just like whatever it was stepped away. And the laser grid spread out and filled the whole space, and we actually got that on camera.
Wow. Very cool.
That was like in terms of evidence that I could take back to someone and show them. That's probably some among the best. I mean, we've got our EVPs and stuff like that, like where we've had actual conversations with something, like the voice has been the same and it's answering our questions, etc. As a personal experience, and we call them personal experiences because something happened, but I can't show you what happened. It's like me telling you about the shadow figure.
Yeah.
Probably the most dramatic was out at Tronquil on a return visit. And myself and Donna were down in the tunnels. We were exploring there, and we've been there all day and had some weird stuff happen. And we came out of the tunnels in what was the laundry facility. And it was time to go. Like, we were during the day. It was 4:00. We wanted to get out of there and go home. It's like, well, do we go back? Do we go up onto the ground and go back to the car that way, or do we want to go back through the tunnels? And we're like, we'll go back through the tunnels and just see if anything else can happen. And the doors down there, like, they open pretty freely. Like, you can just kind of walk through them, and they're just kind of bang like that.
Oh, like saloon doors.
Kind of, a little bit heavier, but they're not on hydraulics. Like, they don't.
Yeah.
So we decided to go back. I turn around, I grab the door, I get it about this far open, and something reefs back on that door with enough force that it slams shut. I'm pulled off my feet, and I go into the door. Donna screamed and ran. And I'm not lying, I was not far behind her. Because I'm 6'1", about 190. And it pulled me off my feet.
Yeah.
Not wind.
Not wind.
You
There's
did-
no
yeah,
way.
there's no way it
There's no
could've been
airflow
wind.
down there. It would take another person to do that. We were the only people in there. And so when you talk about, like, house, like,
Saying,
opening,
hey,
closing
are
doors,
you
and
here?
right? Like, and I didn't know what I was doing back then.
Yeah.
I hadn't I didn't really start being like investigating like this with a group of people till 2017, when I met Peter with Vancouver Paranormal Society, and that's where I learned a lot in the last like 6 years about how to do this properly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of, people always ask, well, if I want to investigate, how do I get started? Don't do what I did and just start messing around on your own. Find a group that does it and learn. There's a way to do it to be respectful to what's there.
Right.
Just to be safe yourself. There's a lot of people that go on TikTok or on YouTube and they're thrill seekers and they're just running through old buildings. You got to be careful. Like, if you go to Tronquil now, I wouldn't want to go into a lot of those buildings at Tronquil now. 20 years later, a lot of them are coming down on their own. You're going to go through the floor. You're going to have stuff. You know what I mean? You got to be. So there's a personal risk, but not because you're going to get possessed, but just because you're going to places that collapse and break your back, right?
Yeah.
And there's a sort of methodology to all of this. We make it we call it a pseudoscience. We're trying to make it as legitimate as we can, given the subject matter that we're dealing with.
I feel like it is legitimate.
Do you think?
I do.
Like, we try our hardest. I know, Todd, you've been out with us a few times. I don't know if you find us legit or scientific.
I mean, I certainly think that, like, I don't think you're faking anything. I don't think you're making up things where it's not. Mm-hmm. So I do, have mad respect for the way you guys are approaching this. Certainly, yeah.
Cool. No, that's what we're trying, right?
Yeah.
To bring more legitimacy and respect to this field. A lot of TV,
of either like the ghost hunting TV shows or fictional films that depict ghost hunting. Is there, in your experience, something that depicts it better than anything else? Or
there's a couple that I think do a really good job. The 1980 movie The Changeling with George C. Scott.
Interesting.
Is really good because there's a couple scenes where he brings people in to they do more of a psychic seance-y thing, but with like automatic writing and all that, and that's actually pretty. I've seen that kind of thing. So
What's automatic writing?
Someone claims that they are a medium and that they can kind of channel a spirit. And so what they do is they have paper and they go into like a trance-like state, and then you ask questions and they start writing responses down on the paper. And I thought that was really well done. Like that got it. I mean, they're doing it for the sake of the story and they are using a medium, but that I've seen people do that, and that's pretty bang on. The movie The Entity with Barbara Hershey, like the last act is a bunch of BS, but they do have scenes where they call investigators in to kind of work in the home and stuff like that, and they did a pretty good job with that as well.
Are there horror movies that are based on real
There's
people?
a whole, there's so many that'll say, like, The Entity is supposed to be based on a real story. All the Conjuring movies are. But supposedly, but Ed and Lorraine Warren have their reputation so tarnished. Like, there's a really good documentary on Netflix right now called The Devil on Trial, based on the story that became The Conjuring 3.
Okay.
And it gets into that, and by the end of that documentary, like, they pull the whole thing apart. And they're interviewing the actual family members involved and stuff like that. It's really fascinating.
The Amityville Horror is another one that's, I think, started off as a very big true story, and then over the years has been more or less debunked.
Yeah.
I remember I was a huge fan of that when I was in high school, but I remember reading the third book that is apparently supposed to be a true story, even by the third book. The third book ends with the family's California house pulled into hell, and George Lutz, the father, defeats the demon by pouring holy water on his hands and choking it to death. And then about that point, I'm like, I'm not sure this is real anymore.
Because that would have been on the news.
You'd think.
The whole house kind of got sucked in, like, at the end of Poltergeist, right? Like, I mean, come on. And yeah, like, oh, that whole... Yeah, but the first book, Jay Anson's first book, you can read it and go, okay.
But even that, apparently, was... They cranked it up compared to what the story, what the actual reality was.
Oh, exactly,
well,
right?
Yeah.
And apparently the whole thing was cooked up by the Lutzes and their priest over a bunch of wine, and then they brought...
And a lawyer as well.
And all that.
I think it was Ronald DeFeo's lawyer.
Yeah.
Because he was... that family had lived in the house prior to that, and he had killed his entire family.
Yeah, shot.
And he was going for some kind of a...
insanity.
Insanity, but like also like ghosts and who knows.
Yeah.
Ghosts inspired the killings, kind of a defense, and so they cooked it up with the Lutzes. Apparently, we'll never know. All the Lutzes are all the adult Lutzes. I mean, they're all adults now. The parents, both Lutz parents, are dead. There is an interesting documentary about one of the kids.
My Amityville Horror.
Yeah.
Daniel Lutz talks about it. It's a really good documentary.
Yeah.
And he won't even say if it was real or not. Like,
I mean, if what you experience as an adult is questionable, I mean, imagining what you experienced as like 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I can't remember how old he was, but probably
old, 8 or 9.
Maybe 8 or 9. You're going to be even more kind of vulnerable to believing things, maybe what your parents tell you have, happened, and all of a sudden that turns into your memory of it happening, even if maybe you never saw it. And I don't want to, call any of the kids, especially like frauds. They're probably just, as much a victim in this situation because they were dragged along by the parents trying to, monetize their supposed experiences.
Well, and apparently George Lutz was, if you listen especially to the Amityville Horror doc, was quite abusive. At least emotionally so, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's going to affect your perspective, too.
Yeah, for sure.
I had questions, but that was 5 minutes ago.
No, please.
So, primarily, you focus on ghosts, but you also, I see a poster.
Lake area. And then up Pinatan Way as well, because there's been alleged sightings all through here.
Really?
And then up in the Bonaparte Plateau. We've gone up there. We actually got wood knocks up in the Bonaparte Plateau.
Really?
Yeah.
So then are you on the side of there's likely Bigfoots out there?
I would love there to be Bigfoots out there. I haven't seen one.
I literally saw a Bigfoot video today.
Did you? Okay.
And it was just a train passing through Colorado.
I've seen that too.
And it looks legit. And he's walking up the hill, and then he just squats. He sits down and squats, and he looks just like
that's cool.
That.
But I think it'd be great if there was that's the thing. Like, I think life is so much more interesting with the possibility of all this stuff. that, I mean, even something like Loch Ness, where they pretty much have exhausted every possibility that it's real. But I don't want that story to ever go away.
Right. Ogopogo.
Ogopogo, same thing. Like, I've actually did an expedition documentary shoot earlier this year for Ogopogo.
In Kalamalka Lake?
Yeah, Kalamalka Lake and all that. Like, I love that there's stuff that could be there,
Yeah.
right? And I think because the indigenous people consider it a water spirit, and that Bigfoot's actually a forest spirit. I like that. I don't like explaining an unknown with another unknown, but because I'm already open to the possibilities that there could be ghosts and spirits of all kinds, why couldn't these things that people see in lakes and in forests be that? And that's just when you catch the rare glimpse of it in some kind of tangible form, right?
I feel like Bigfoot's a hybrid of like an ape and a person.
That's quite the Gigantopithecus theory. Like, that's quite the common one, that they just think it's that. And there's enough of them to reproduce, but there's not so many that they can't be seen all the time.
Yeah, right,
or maybe they're cavemen.
Could be, or we don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I think that's where, like, the concept of multiverse theory comes in and makes things really interesting, like stuff blipping in and out of our realm. This is where you get into all the woo stuff.
And on that one, we did discuss Loch Ness at one point. And I floated the theory that Loch Ness and Ogopogo are the same, and that the lakes have connections to the ocean. And so basically Ogopogo just sort of like, he summers in one place and winters in the other, and just travels back.
And just the center of the ice. I know there's a lot of scientists
the ice wall, or
I don't know what I'm really talking. Yeah, do you know much about that?
Not too much. I
4 different societies.
Well, isn't that where Kong hangs out?
Where?
King Kong?
Maybe, I don't know.
Godzilla versus Kong. They went to the middle of the earth.
Really?
Kong's from. You haven't watched that yet?
No.
Oh,
sorry. Getting called out on mine. I haven't seen The Entity or The Changeling either.
Well, you got to get on.
Which are actually, those are on my list of things to see. I think The Changeling was on.
It's on Tubi.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
So you watch it for free.
Check it out. Yeah.
Okay, focus, you guys. We're here to.
Sorry. This happens when Todd and I sit down. We suddenly go off on tangents.
We're nearly done. We're at an hour, so we can sort of wrap things up at any time. But we don't have to either. So, like, if you have any other questions, or we haven't covered UFOs yet. What are your thoughts on?
Well, that's UFOs? whole other ballgame, right? I think the fact that the governments are starting to actually admit that there's stuff happening that they can't explain it. And there's one guy that was in Congress was like all times. So there's something going. And I think there's been aliens visiting us forever. We could be, Native Americans talk about the star people, right? Like, and that they've been coming down. Who's to say that we aren't a colony from another
There's always
planet?
That's true. Yeah.
There's something in the sky that they're looking up to. Well, they have to.
Yeah,
he's above.
Because above. But I mean, and I always like to, and religious people get really mad at me. I'm like, they always talk about God above. Well, the aliens come from up above, right?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, that is one theory for the beginning of life, is that we were seeded by aliens. I think that's panspermia, right? Is that the theory?
Yeah.
But do you think aliens built the pyramid?
Oh, it sure seems like
how
could have been.
I don't know how else.
Right? It makes you wonder. The Egyptians talk about their chariots of the gods that would come down and bring information to them, right? I mean, I think there's a good possibility. I can't go back in time and confirm it, but it sure sounds viable.
It does remind me of a cartoon or a comic I saw recently where it's like, all the Egyptians working hard to like build the pyramids, and somebody saying like, one day they'll look back on our hard work and marvel at how we did this. And then it's like, hundreds of years later, it's like, it was probably aliens. little disrespectful to all the Egyptians who worked super hard to get that
to make it
done.
And get it so perfect, right? And to carve the stones. I know it's but we don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
We don't know. But I think it's fascinating. Just the world, the time we're in right now, where we're just starting to actually take this stuff seriously.
Yeah.
And where governments are admitting that there's stuff going on they can't explain.
It's not just fiction.
Yeah, it's no longer fiction or something.
And there's a reason why it's been in movies and, fiction books this whole time, because I really, really think there's a reason. Yeah. There's a reason why,
I do remember hearing that, it was after Close Encounters of the Third Kind released that the picture that people claim to have seen when they see aliens changed, right?
Yeah.
Before that, it was sort of like the green home, and so it like invaded the unconscious, and sort of that's what people see now.
Yeah.
But there's different species of aliens. There's ones that smell like pee. Remember? We went on Google and one smelled like pee, and they looked like a big.
Well, there's the lizard aliens too.
Praying mantis.
Aliens, and yeah, they're probably warring too. Like at some point, like some of them must be fighting with each other for dominance of the center of the Hollow Earth.
They're probably laughing at us right now.
Yeah, they probably
are.
Like, you idiots.
They would be picking up this.
Oh yeah.
They're all over YouTube. Those guys.
Yeah.
Spreading their lies.
There is one theory. It was John Keel, who of course wrote the Mothman Prophecies. And the book goes way further than anything they did in the movie. But he talked about these ultra-terrestrials. And kind of how I was mentioning earlier that this has been around forever. But they interact with us, and they've been doing it forever, and so they morph into the kind of the technology of the time, which is why in the Egyptian times UFOs were chariots, and then in the Victorian times they're like those weird Zeppelin-y skies.
Because that's the only thing you can explain.
You can explain it and relate it, and now it's like stealth bomber aircraft, and so they adjust that way.
Interesting.
But everything's always a little off, and that's like Mothman and Bigfoot and all this is all tied into all that, right? And so. Like, we could talk forever and do whole shows about these different theories about it. But, like, there's so much
Is witching hour, apparently?
Well, that's... but no, that's more of a Hollywood thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It is...
Because I do wake up at 3
Well, a lot of people
day.
do, and I think a lot of that has more to do with our natural biological rhythms and, like, bladder control and all that kind of stuff.
I do pee, yeah.
To go pee, because it's always to go pee, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean... Same with the upside down cross. That's a Hollywood thing. They're just trying to come up with
on TikTok and on YouTube with spooky stuff.
Yeah, 3 a.m. videos.
My kid talks about like 3 a.m. as being like the extra spooky time.
So does my son, but I think it's more born out of.
I think I agree.
Mythology of Hollywood.
But it is definitely sort of within culture now. It's been absorbed.
Yeah, it's been permeated into it, right?
Because all the experiences you've had weren't at 3 a.m.
They
were like during the day.
Just going pee at 3 a.m.
Yeah. yeah.
The ghost of my bladder.
Yeah, the ghost of my bladder. Like, and we investigate in the daytime sometimes when we have stuff happen. Like, this stuff doesn't need a time of day or a place. It can happen anytime, anywhere, which I know sounds really ominous, but it's not. And it's really not, if I have like a final message that I could give, this stuff isn't bad. It's not out to get you. The only reason you find it scary is because you just don't understand it.
We're actually out to get them.
So which is why we hunt ghosts, right?
They're more scared of us than we are of them.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
But yeah,
like
it's
spiders.
not. This isn't bad. You don't. When something happens in your house, just don't panic. Stop. Take a breath.
Right.
Get a spirit box.
So
Get a spirit box.
what if, like, whoever's watching?
Yep.
Hopefully, there's people watching. How do they connect with you?
We have a website, CanadianParanormalSociety.ca.
Okay.
We are on Facebook, again, Canadian Paranormal Society. So you can message us through there. There's an email on our website. Or you can just come find myself, Jason Hewlett, or Pete Wren. We're the co-founders. You can track us down and reach out that way as well.
And you're affordable.
We're super affordable.
Very affordable. That's good to know.
Well, thank you much. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. You can tell I'm so good at this, right? Thank you much.
It's like that. It's like that Austin Powers. Allow myself
to introduce myself.
And
anytime.
Hello to Heat My Shorts, who is here
Heat
to
or
watch and
eat?
listen. Heat
My Shorts.
Heat My Shorts.
Oh, that's Steve Gillespie.
Is it?
That's awesome. Heat My Shorts.
I think I went to school with him.
Okay, well, Heat My Shorts has been watching.
Yay!
Thank you, Heat My Shorts.
Thanks, Heat.
Yeah, so, thanks.
Thank you so much. This has been great.
I almost said I love you, but I don't.